Hello, Galaxy. I'm Chris Pirillo. We don't really have a solid starting time for these streams on the weekend, but I've been doing a lot lately, and of course, this channel is off to a rip-roaring start. But I've been experimenting and noticing that the longer videos that I upload don't track half as well as the shorts. The silly shorts have a better chance of taking off than the longer talky videos. And I don't even mean like the longer hour-long, half-hour-long live conversations. So I'm still not sure what this channel is going to be, FYI. I've been doing Twitch, of course, as you very well know, and I'm thinking about changing that schedule too, and going live on Twitch instead of every night at 6 p.m., just going live on Twitch on the weekends. So that may leave more time for doing live videos on YouTube for one reason or another. Trying to find my way through this madness, all the options that are currently out there at my disposal. And honestly, I'm not sure what's going to work best. So I'm in experimentation mode, you might say. I want to thank you for joining. I'm trying a new feature now called Ask Me Anything, a Q&A for chat, at least the live chat. I'm kind of interested in seeing how that goes. If you see it, I think you can press the button and then answer or ask a question, then I can answer it, something like that. But the bulk of today's live stream, now that we're past that administrivia, is Twitter. I have been publishing online since the mid-90s. Like publishing, like for real. Like Locker Gnome existed in the mid-90s. I loved publishing Locker Gnome for everything that I wanted to share with it and or through it. But Locker Gnome very much was me and my interests. And of course, we split attention from there, and instead of just being my interest, we started publishing other newsletters and other people's interests, and focused on various verticals. Like, Locker Gnome evolved into a Windows newsletter and a Mac newsletter and a Linux newsletter and a web developer newsletter. I mean, we had some newsletters back in the day. Blogs, really. Before blogs were blogs, we were doing newsletters. So I've been around for a while. I've joined every social network for every benefit that the social networks have had to offer, knowing full well that I ran the risk of not being able to control the experience. And I was willing to take that risk, and I took that risk. Hence me, spinning things up and doing things on YouTube, because it was easier to do things on YouTube and put videos on YouTube than it was to self-host videos, because this is even before YouTube had advertising revenue, built into the platform. You might remember what we were doing with the live stream. I would answer a question live. We would clip that out and then upload it as a separate video on YouTube. And that worked, I feel, exceedingly well. And there may still be a possibility of doing something like that again, if it makes sense. The challenge is that YouTube has changed. I mean, I've certainly changed. I have similar interests, maybe not the same interests as I once did, but similar. And social media has given me great pause. I mean, especially after what's happened with this transfer of power to Elon Musk. Now, before this was happening, right? I think about a month or so ago, I gave my take on would I want Elon to buy Twitter, and or would I want him to run Twitter? I'm like, I wasn't sure. Well, now I'm sure. It's not good. I'm not having a good time, and I'm worried. I've seen social networks come and go. whether we're talking about MySpace, Google Plus, Friend Feed, networks that I loved, networks that I used. But they just went away. They were acquired. They disappeared. They were sunset. And they no longer exist. And every single time, with the nature of social media being controlled by one entity, one company, one platform, is that you have to constantly rebuild your social graph over and over and over again. It's because they're in control. This isn't YouTube, it's their tube. We're able to use it, right? And I'm grateful to be able to use it, right? The problem when you're dealing with any one of these entities is that when they change direction, you got no choice. So now, Twitter, which has been ostensibly my homepage, really. I use TweetDeck, and which is owned by Twitter. More nerve-wracking. I fear that the moment that I go to use it and it's gone. And I use the legacy TweetDeck because the new TweetDeck that they've been working on it misses the mark in terms of product. And now I really have no hope for that. Because I can tell you this, Elon Musk, not a product guy. So these networks that establish themselves, give you opportunities to connect with other people, at one time were a dime a dozen, in many cases still are a dime a dozen. If they change, or they have a policy, no volume, you should have volume. I see volume here. Let me check on this end. No, I can hear myself. So I think you've got the issue with the volume. Anyway, that's one thing you don't want to do when you're talking to a live streamer, say anything about audio, because they will stop everything. It's the worst thing you could possibly say. So these platforms change their mind. They change their direction. We got no choice. Twitter changed its direction. Still the same people who are, using it. Definitely not the same people running it. And I think they're down, like they've now eliminated half of their working staff. Some people say, oh, they needed to trim the fat. Really? Like, I know I've never run a service as monstrous as Twitter, and I mean that in the best way. I'm not saying it's a monstrosity, or has been, but there are a lot of moving parts, and that requires a lot of people. And when you eliminate institutional knowledge, we're watching it happen. We have no choice. We're passengers on Avenue 5. So, of course, I've had followers on Twitter for a number of years. But I fear that there's gonna come a day where just Twitter is just like it's imploding now, and I just don't know if it's going to survive. And even if it does, my concern still is in having abdicated my social graph to somebody else. And remember, setting context, I was doing this kind of thing back in the mid-90s, right? Usenet was still around. If you remember Usenet, right? IRC, certainly. Still a thing, kind of. I'm not saying that we need to return to those days, because I don't think that's practical. I don't think that's possible. The world has changed. I've changed, certainly. You've changed, at least I hope. But the prospect of what has happened has given me pause. I don't use Facebook so much anymore because of the algorithm. I don't use YouTube so much anymore because of the algorithm. I don't really use Instagram all that much because of the algorithm. I'm tilting into TikTok because I feel I do well with shorts. Still, there's an algorithm. Twitter has been frustrating because of the algorithm. Like, just because you post a tweet doesn't mean everybody's going to see it. And even though there's a way to turn off the home timeline. Not everybody does. It's not the default action. Chronological is not the default. So, algorithm. Back in the early days with Locker Gnome, I was the algorithm, right? Set the schedule, published an email newsletter, sent it out, paid the bills by finding sponsors and advertising revenue, affiliate revenue, and the like. And it worked. And it worked well. But social media kind of killed the momentum of the newsletter, honestly. I couldn't spend so much time working on something that had low return in terms of investment, because there's only so much you can pay attention to on any given day. So I started to sideline the newsletter. The newsletter still exists. Right now it's hosted on Review, which is owned by, say it with me, Twitter. That's the reason I moved from Substack to Review, because of Twitter. I thought, oh, Twitter now owns Review. They're going to do great things. I might as well just, move to Review and be done with it. That was a mistake, because I just don't know if I can trust Twitter anymore. I'm not saying you shouldn't. That's completely up to you. And this is not a political position. This is a position that I take based upon experience of having to rebuild my social graph over and over and over and over and over. I'm going to be 50 next year. Over half my life I've spent doing this kind of thing. And there hasn't been a viable alternative. Now you might say, oh, just kick up Locker Gnome again. Well, if Locker Gnome were to spin up again, if y'all even remember that, it would have to be different. And I'm not even sure if the people that would want to know about it could know about it. Because honestly, me, even having right now in this channel 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, I guarantee maybe only 100 people are going to see this video. Maybe. Because of, say it with me, the algorithm, right? And if I don't do it YouTube's way, COTS, tough, I'm SOL. And quite honestly, if you want to know why I stopped doing a lot of what I used to do, is because I got tired of fighting the algorithm. Could I learn how to beat it? Yes, absolutely. For sure, people do that all the time. But as you've noticed with a lot, not all, of legacy publishers or creators, they just could not shift. They could not make the leap. It was it's been a different world. So in this title, there's a word, Mastodon. And this is something that's been around for a while. I knew about it lightly, but didn't entertain the idea, because honestly, at that point, there wasn't critical mass. We hadn't come close to a tipping point with social media. People complain about Facebook, Meta, whatever they're going to be called, all the time, but they don't leave. You might have left, but people, by and large, don't leave, right? Facebook is a force to be reckoned with. But as far as content publishing is concerned, as far as connecting with people is concerned, as far as sharing discoveries is concerned, it's not viable unless you play their game. And honestly, I'm not sure I can, not on my own. So I look at Mastodon. I thought, oh God, it's too difficult. What is this? What is this Mastodon thing? What is this? It's open source, federated. What does that mean? What? Decentralized? Oh God, are we talking about NFTs and crypto and Web3? God, okay. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to try it. And I was wrong. I was wrong to try to lump it in with other technologies that have been not just confusing to me, but well, you don't have to look very far in the headlines to know what can happen in the world of crypto. And as we see right now, it's been a downward trend with mentions of NFTs. Hey, if you want to buy a JPEG, knock yourself out. I'm not saying that the idea is bad. I just don't know if the system has really evolved to the point where it's viable. So we may still see non-fungible tokens take their place in the landscape, but not in the way that we've seen them to this point. At least not that I believe. I could be wrong. Hey, just a minute ago I said I was wrong. When I saw Mastodon, I was like, okay, what is this? Why is there a value in doing this? Why would I? Why? Yet another social network. And logged in, it tried to figure things out. There was maybe a small learning curve, but I started to realize that what the Fediverse is, federated media, right? Dissociated servers that have an opportunity to connect or not connect with other federated platforms. When I started to use it and recognize its differences in stark contrast to that which I had experienced over the past, I don't know, how many years have we known of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and social media where our accounts exist on these other platforms? How long have we known that? How long have we been using it? So long that it's hard to kind of peel back the layers and go, oh, yeah, this is kind of what it was like in the beginning of the internet. Mastodon is not a company. It's a project, open source platform, not owned by anybody. You can take the ball and run with it if you want. You don't have to go to any one server, any one instance, as they call it. And you can choose an instance that may be central to your interests. So, for example, remember years ago with LockerGnome, I set up lockergnome.net and ran that on OSQA. Ultimately, I couldn't get hosting for it, so the project died. It just died. It was unfortunate because there was a wealth of people that loved to help each other, and I thought it was so much fun. It wasn't exactly like a forum, more like a Stack Overflow, but less for developers. That's the problem I've run into with those types of platforms in the past. So Mastodon is something that I recognized is easily misunderstood if you try to compare it with non-federated media. You can't treat it like Twitter. You can't see it like Facebook. You can't use it the same way. It's completely different. It's got its own feel, and it's going to experience growing pains. I feel that it's very reminiscent of the early days of social media, minus social media hosted on somebody else's platform. Now, that's not to say that with Mastodon, you go and you choose whichever instance you want. And each instance has its own rules. Each instance may have its own direction. Myself, I'm on, there's the link I just posted in chat. The link to mastodon.social. That's the main Mastodon instance. Doesn't mean that's the one you have to join. But that's an invite. If you wanted to join the main mastodon.social instance, that's the one. It's operated by the person who basically created Mastodon as a Twitter alternative. So, in using it, like I said, I had to get over the idea that it needed to be Twitter, because it isn't, and it won't be. I had to get over the idea that it was controlled by one entity. It isn't. It won't be. And I don't mean that was that much of a stumbling for me. It's just a different way of thinking. If you follow me on Mastodon, we own that relationship. I could take my account and move it to another instance like that. And you don't have to do anything. Try doing that with any other social media. Try it. Ain't gonna happen. And that to me is pretty darn awesome. So I am investing a bit more time with it and thinking about doubling down on the newsletter, probably going back to Substack just because it's free to host there, and I don't have to worry about it. And a lot of people know of Substack, so I don't have to educate people about it. You of course are free to follow me throughout social media. The thing you have to remember, just because you're following me doesn't mean you're going to see everything I post. That's the value of a newsletter. You can see the things that I'm trying to send you. Mastodon has no tracking, no ads, and no algorithm. So if you want to know, well, Chris, why should I invest my time? It's easy to sign up for Twitter. Of course it is. Sure it is. Well, it's a little more difficult to sign up for Mastodon. No ads, no tracking, no algorithm. So if you're telling me that you're not willing to invest 5 minutes, be willing to ask questions that I'm happy to answer, and step through the process by which you can better understand Mastodon, because I don't know everything. I don't. I just started. I'm just telling you. Saw it, thought, no, this doesn't sound interesting. Came back to it again, said, all right, I've got to try it. Let's see what this is all about. I don't understand what this means. Let's give it a shot. It took maybe 1 or 2 days for me to go, oh, this makes sense. And it makes sense so much that I'm not saying that Twitter makes less sense, but I'm watching Twitter crash and burn. And it's like a train wreck. You just can't look away. And it's horrible. I am not, and here's the thing, I am not rooting for that to happen. Twitter has had its place as the public square. It's no longer the public square. It is very much a private square. So don't let anybody fool you with the idea of free speech. Free speech does not exist on a private platform. I'll say it again. Free speech does not exist on a private platform. Say it with me again. Free speech does not exist on a private platform. Y'all. I'm not one of those tinfoil hat wearing folks. I'm not all about the DeFi and the crypto and the all that. I'm like, nah, dude, it's got to be practical. Mastodon fills a gap that has existed from the time that we had blogs till Twitter melting down. Meltdown's probably the wrong word. It's going through a change. Whether or not it survives that metamorphosis, whether it comes out the other side as a cockroach, all I'm saying is the person leading it, I have very little trust in because of his actions. That's what's concerning. We could log in tomorrow and it's gone. Because someone with institutional knowledge didn't tell somebody else about a shim that was in a server somewhere that just made the whole thing stand up. I'm not a developer, but I know that typically with code, it is incredibly possible to have those little things that make other things work. And if you remove one thing, the whole thing comes crashing down like a house of cards. What's exciting about Mastodon, and I don't know if are you hearing the blips in the background? I don't know if you could hear that with this microphone. I've got Mastodon running in my web browser. It's notifying me that either someone favorited a post or basically boosted it or followed me or replied to something. It's a notification. So I really want to I want to explore this further because I feel now's the time. And I know, this is tech, dude. This is the tech that I love talking about because so much of culture is shaped by tech today. We're not just talking about the smartphones. The policies shape your experience. These platforms shape your experience. And suddenly, Mastodon comes along, the Fediverse becomes more of a reality, and things start making sense again, where for the longest time, it just felt like my future in publishing wasn't in my hands. My future as a content creator wasn't in my hands. My existence is not in doing what I did 20 years ago. A lot of creators are in the same boat. From my class of creators are in the same boat. Not every one of them. Some people were able to make that migration more smoothly, or the transition better than I did. And it doesn't mean that I fell short in other areas. Social media feels like, hey, this is my campground. I get it. Which is probably one of the reasons why I'm becoming very bullish with the idea of the Fediverse. These federated instances that can interconnect or cut off. So Mastodon uses the same type of paradigm as Twitter. It's like a microblogging platform. There's nuance. It doesn't work exactly the same way. Different language, different culture. But right now, with Mastodon, I'm going to tell you. There are not as many people on Mastodon. Maybe a couple million, maybe in totality, maybe, compared to Twitter, 280 million. Well, with that, of course, Chris, I would go to the platform with all the users. Would you though? What are you looking for? What have I said for years? I'd rather have, and I said this about Patreon, I'd rather have 1,000 patrons who wanted to support me in one way or another. I'd rather have 1,000 subscribers on Twitch, and I don't. I'd rather have 1,000 subscribers or followers or people who were members on YouTube than people who just subscribed and never saw my content, who never saw what I had to say. What would I rather have? Would I rather have qualified people? Would I rather have 500 followers, let's say, on Mastodon? Or would I rather have 100,000 on Twitter? Well, I can tell you this. And I'm not the only one to have experienced this, but I'll give you an explanation. There have been a few people who've had experiments. Well, I posted the same thing on Twitter and Mastodon, and I got more engagement on Mastodon. Well, I'm here to say, duh. And the reason why is because you're not, A, fighting an algorithm on Twitter. And this goes for everybody. B, there are fewer people here, so there's more opportunity for signal. So with traditional social media, YouTube included, it's all about attention. You've got to play the game to get attention. And if you don't play that game for attention, you lose. For years, what was so frustrating is people would say, Chris, I was subscribed to you and I'm not subscribed to you anymore. Well, okay. Chris, why don't you go back to talking about X, Y, and Z? And I was doing it contemporaneously. I said, I just did. And I get so frustrated because the process was broken. Because you fight the algorithm. I'm done with algorithms, dude. I can't. Right now, it's difficult for me on my own to fight an algorithm. I would need to hire someone. And by the way, I'd have no problem hiring someone to help me crack the nut of an algorithm. As a creative, that's not where my head goes. It's a process that, I've attempted to crack, but it's an uphill climb. It's not as intuitive to me as, say, flipping on a camera and talking, like what I'm doing right now. That's intuitive. Chatting with folks. Interacting. Putting things out there. Ian Hobbies, thank you for signing up. And also Ethan's Dad 3D, thank you for following there on Mastodon. The thing to keep in mind about the Fediverse, and again, if you joined another server and you didn't like it, you can export your followers to any other Mastodon instance, and they just follow you there. And I believe a redirect might even pop up saying, oh, you can now follow so-and-so on such and such. I believe redirects exist on some instances, if not all of them. So I've thought, just in my head, it would be an interesting exercise to reboot Locker Gnome on the Fediverse. It'd be interesting to reboot Locker Gnome as a Mastodon instance, where the nerds and geeks, because there's already, I think it's in Germany, nerdculture.de exists, and it's for geeks, it's for nerds. I'm like, well, Locker Gnome could exist as for tech and pop culture and geeky and nerdy. That's what Locker Gnome was. It was all about that. All the cool discoveries, all the cool new stuff. right? The just living on the edge of geeks and nerddom. I was doing that eons ago. Well, I'm not saying it's impossible. I couldn't do it on my own because I don't want to babysit a server again, and I don't want to have to deal with the software stuff. So, but if I could find and put the word out there, like I'd be interested in spinning something up for Locker Gnome, I feel that a plan could come together. And I could basically bring Locker Gnome back as a Mastodon instance. And as that Mastodon instance, we have an opportunity to connect to Mastodon.social and Mastodon.online and this Mastodon and that Mastodon. And they can discover the things that are being shared on the Locker Gnome instance. And vice versa, right? That's how federated media works. Nobody really owns it. And if you were like, Chris, I'm not happy with your policies, I want to talk about politics. I'm like, no. That'd be like one thing. A server rule is like, no politics. Take that elsewhere. Don't want to deal with it. This is going to be about, you be a geek. This is a chance for you to geek out about whatever you care to geek out about. Tech, pop culture, entertainment, collecting, fandoms, geek, right? Hardware, software, and the like. That's what it would be. That would be the vertical. So anyway, it's just experiencing it over the past week had me thinking. I'm like, it's possible. It's a heavy lift, and here's why. There's no direct financial model for it. It costs money to run a server. And so I don't know if I could do that unless I knew I had enough support to launch it. So I'm going to see about putting together some budgets and finding people who could do it and basically get it done and basically have Locker Gnome be rebooted by way of direct support, like whatever platform like Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee or whatever, but basically built upon the support, like $5, $10, whatever a month. And then run it that way, and look for options and opportunities to do it therein. I haven't heard about Vero, but if it's another closed platform, Kelex, I'm cautious. I'm very leery. I've become very leery of those closed platforms for the aforementioned reasons, because I'd have to rebuild my social graphs, and there's too much of a chance of not enough of a critical mass. And it takes a critical mass. And I'm telling you right now, this is the time. Like, Chris, why would I do that? I'm going to wait. Don't. Now is the time to start participating in Mastodon. Why? Chris, why? I'm always on the bleeding edge of this stuff. And I have been from the very beginning. And I eat this stuff up. The reason why is because as much as Mastodon in its totality today is not approaching Twitter numbers, and Twitter numbers aren't approaching Facebook numbers, that does not mean that those connections that you're making are any less important or any less valid. That the value you're placing into the network is any less important. And that's a key differentiator. With traditional social media, with these traditional platforms, what you're doing is you're doing everything to build attention. You're doing everything to fight attention. It's attention-based. That's Twitter. That's Facebook. That's YouTube. To a large degree, that's Twitch. But with Mastodon, despite its lower numbers today, because trust me, they're not going to shrink, you're not fighting a lot of other people for attention. So you can establish your niche, your interests. You can meet people more easily, and not have to fight a higher signal to noise ratio. So what I'm saying is, on Twitter, when you log in, there's 100 posts. Man, scroll. Oh my God, I can't pay attention to it. On Mastodon, there may be 10. Okay, that's digestible. So those 10 people you're following or whatever, this is easy. I can handle this, right? There's less to pay attention to right now, as opposed to Twitter, where it's a fire hose. And granted, you are still in control. You want to follow all the things. I get that. There are granular filters that you can set up on Mastodon to effectively to minimize what you see in your timeline, and maybe not necessarily how much you see of it. There's content warnings that exist on Mastodon, especially if there's something sensitive that you might be posting. It's kind of like a spoiler alert. Like, instead of saying, oh, I want to talk about Star Wars, what's going on with Andor, instead of tweeting it, you can put it behind a content warning. Or instead of doing something political, you can put it behind a content warning. And if someone really wanted to see it, they would take the extra action, right? Is it a little more work for them? Sure, but it creates a safer environment. And that, again, is something that's baked into Mastodon. It's a safer environment. And I don't just mean for, oh, you just grow up. Like, no, seriously. Like, that's smart. That's courteous. Because instead of, with traditional social media, fighting for attention, on Mastodon, you're fighting for value. And not even fighting. You're there to provide value. People are going to follow you because they find your posts entertaining, or they find them uplifting, or they find, they just want to connect with you, or they want to know what's going on. They're not doing it, for the same reasons that they might be on Twitter. Things don't have the potential or the propensity for going as viral, let's say, on Mastodon as they might on Twitter. Rumble, I don't know about, but I tend to steer clear. And if I remember correctly, Rumble's got very heavy political foundations. And I'm just not, I will listen to politics. And by the way, when I say that, I happen to follow in social media people who have wildly different perspectives and completely different backgrounds. And it's one of the reasons that I very rarely choose to throw myself into the fray. But I want to say that a lot of those platforms that have been set up for political reasons that I will tell you I don't necessarily happen to align with, are based on Mastodon. I do believe. So if they could figure it out, and I know that a couple of a few minutes ago, someone had said, and I apologize for missing this, didn't get through the sign up on Mastodon, didn't like the idea of having to choose a niche or region on sign up. Well, Daniel, you can change it after the fact. This is the thing. Stop. Okay, I'm not mad at you, but you've got to stop thinking the way that social media has been. This is, God bless America, this is what's so exciting. Why do you think I'm jumping out of I'm getting hot under the collar here. It's not, dude, this is not another website. You can start somewhere. If it's not your jam, you can take whatever you did and move it somewhere else. Seamlessly now. And I only expect the feature set to get more streamlined. Is it perfect? No. Is it something that's going to improve over time? I would imagine. Is it costly? I've not looked into it in terms of hosting. Right now, I'm content with let me get my sea legs. But this is not. It's not foreign to me. I'm like, this is very eerily reminiscent of the early days of social networking, pre-algorithm. Like, it was just like, man, I could put something out there and people see it. They found value in it. They see it. I will tell you, a lot of instances are not hip to spam. So the pump and dumps won't work. You got to be a legitimate engager. You've got to provide value. What's your value? You've got to decide what your value is, right? Me, I'm throwing out quips. I said today I posted. It used to be called a toot. They've changed that now. It's you publish. But I posted something like, I just took a risk and used a butter knife with margarine. I just thought it was funny. Dad joke, So the dad joke. Is that valuable? It may make someone laugh. Okay, great. I've lightened the mood, right? Or I've been posting a lot of my generations from AI, using AI art generators on Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, and I posted those. and some people like it, right? But this is the thing. There's no global search for Mastodon. You can't use it that way. And that was done with intention. With intention. The way to be discovered is to use hashtags. The way to discover is to look for hashtags. So you can only imagine, one of my dedicated columns is Star Wars. I love it. I've met a few people, the Star Wars, because there's so many geeks and nerds using Mastodon today. Like scientists and developers and just geeks and nerds using it because, I mean, Mastodon has that learning curve, right? It's like it takes a little bit of understanding for you to be onboarded into something. So it's fascinating to me because with being able to search for a hashtag, right now, the signal is high. And people aren't abusing it. And the moment they start abusing something is the moment they're likely going to get reported. Now, let's say you're like following, in the feed, just much like you can on Twitter, you can mute hashtags. You can mute words. You just don't want to see it in the timeline. I don't want to see anything about Star Wars. Okay, gone. Anything that comes up with there, it's gone. You won't ever see it. It's the same thing with Twitter. I think you get more granular filters, though, with Mastodon, and I haven't dived too deeply because right now I haven't had the need to set up a filter. I'm sure it's coming. Right now, the amount of signal, though, that I'm getting on Mastodon is rock solid. Makes sense, allows folks to filter their content, but also allows folks free speech. Well, this isn't the government. Nick, I gotta correct you, buddy. This isn't the government. Free speech that's a government thing, right? We have the right to say anything we want to about the government. That's free speech, without fear of reprisal. You can say whatever you want to say. It doesn't mean that a platform has the right to host you saying whatever the hell you want to say. Just like if you're leaving a comment in my channel that I don't like, I can delete it, or I can mute you, or I can remove you. That's not censorship. No one's telling you not to say what you want to say. YouTube, go make a video about it. Go post something in your own channel. No one's telling you not to. No one's telling you to shut up. Do it in your own space. I'd say Mastodon's the same way. You don't like the way a server's running, you can make your own, or you can go to another server. That server, though, may have decided to either silence an entire Mastodon instance, or defederate, meaning even if it's running on the same code base, it's a different server, it's a different instance. If there's a lot of problems coming from a particular server or a particular instance, the instance manager or owner here may decide, yeah, we're going to mute that other server, or we're going to defederate, entirely from that server. We don't want to, or that instance, we do not want to see anything, which means if you're on this server and you were following anybody from this server, you'd have to almost move your account to a different server in order to follow them again. But typically, defederation happens for pretty big reasons. And usually pretty good reasons for those server owners. They've set up these instances as networks that are designed to be insular, but connected to a greater whole, if that makes sense. So you're more than welcome, honestly, Nick, that's what I'm saying, Ethan said. It's like email. It's like Usenet. Well, Usenet to a certain degree. Email, right? You open up your email client, you're on Gmail. Does that mean you can't email someone who's using Yahoo? No. You just say username@yahoo.com, and you can do that from within Gmail. Same paradigm within Mastodon. On Mastodon, when I'm logged in, if you're on a different server than me, like if you're on, so I'm on mastodon.social. That's where I am. The link's there, the invite's there in chat. But you're on, let's say, Mast.2, which is another Mastodon instance. All I got to do is basically copy your profile and then paste it into a search field on my Mastodon instance, like, search, and then it says, oh, this is a user. Click to add. Boom, done, connected. That's it. It's like adding you to the address book. That's it. That's all it takes. It's not that much of a hurdle. If you want to add someone from a different server, copy and paste their URL. If not, you clicking through their profile, if they replied to you from the Fediverse, you might be able to do it natively or organically. I've had people follow me from other platforms, people I know. I'm like, oh, look, it's Roland. Oh, cool. Oh, he just followed? I'm going to add him back. Boom, done, easy. It's inconsequential. Inconsequential in terms of how the difficulties and the learning curve, the hump. If your timeline is barren, use hashtags. Start using hashtags. And I don't just mean to spam. If you want to meet other people, use hashtags. Hash. If it's related, hash. All my Stable Diffusions posts, hashtag Stable Diffusion. They're about Star Wars. Hashtag Star Wars. It's AI art. Fantasy, sci-fi. I mean, like, they're all tags that would bring my value to someone who would be interested in the stuff that I had to say. So, or make your own hashtag. There's tech talk or food talk, on TikTok. There could be, someone probably is created a Tubodon for YouTubers. YouTubodon, like, for the people who are connecting there. There's no one who's got critical mass, though, to be able to pull something like that off. Journalists are not migrated, but have begun the migration process to the Fediverse. Most of them are cross-posting between Twitter and Mastodon. But see, if Twitter falls apart, the thing about that is, if you've got a lot of media who are using a Mastodon instance, suddenly people are going, where'd you go? Where do I go to get you? You can either subscribe to their newsletter if they have one. You could, or you could follow them on another platform. Instagram's not the platform. YouTube's not the platform. LinkedIn, probably not the platform. So, I got to tell you, it's been an eye-opening experience for me to use Mastodon, just for this past, just not even a week. I swear to God, I just signed up like the other day. Like, it was not that long ago at all. And then suddenly I was like, this makes sense. I was able to contextualize. I was able to figure this out. So what I'm saying is, there's a learning curve. It's a learning curve worth your time to get over. It's different, and you have to think of it differently compared to traditional social media. It's not the same. Similar in terms of what you can do and what you can find and who you can discover. But beyond that, it's just not new in the sense of like it's just brand new today, right? It's been around for at least a couple of years. And the funny thing is, with it being around for a couple of years, I didn't even sign up for it, or because I went looking. I'm like, I wonder, did I sign up for this? And I looked. I'm like, no, I don't think I did. I don't think I would have, at least not at the time that it was around, because there was no critical mass. Like, I just didn't know a lot of people were there. I'm like, what's the point? It's just, I've got to spend my time and attention where time and attention is being spent. But now, algorithm. No algorithm. I'd much rather cultivate connections where I know I will never have to fight an algorithm. I'd rather look towards a future where I could provide value the way that I always appreciated providing value, and having more control over my destination. Enjoying the journey, certainly, but having more control over my destination. And Twitter never afforded that to me. Favorites on Mastodon are private. I'll never know your favorites, ever. You'll never know mine. The boosts are like retweets. On most instances, you can't quote tweet, and the reason why is because it had been abused, by and large, on Twitter. And I can see that, although I miss that. That is one thing that I do miss terribly. Because I use it, and I don't use it to abuse, right? I use it to accelerate usually. But if you want to do that, you can just reply. You can reply to someone's thread. So there's a chance for you to find different people, new people, the same people, and get started with a nascent platform where this is just I don't want to get hyperbolic. I feel this is going to work, and people will learn how to work with it. Just like technology. Oh, people will never understand this. A lot of people don't. They'll never do this. Too difficult. It's too... Well, I tell you what, the nerds and geeks, they figured it out. I'm like, all right. Well, now I feel the onus is on me to educate. And I don't know everything. But I do feel that way. I do feel it's my... I just feel I need to pick up that ball and help people over that hump. Because, I think the world could benefit. Because the alternative is that... And I have no problem with companies in the bottom line and working within those ecosystems. I've been publishing on social media, and I will continue to publish in social media. I'll be tweeting until the day it's done, which could be in another week. I don't know. No one knows. But the prospect of yielding that social graph, that and not being able to count on, a platform to help connect those value. The value proposition between someone who's doing something and someone who enjoys the thing that's being done. This is different. This is what's different, and I feel bullish about it. Not just because of its open source nature, not just because of this basic experience, but me just understanding. This is what it was like pre-social media. And there are underlying technologies and pipes and connections between this, that, and the other thing. I feel Mastodon is going to get more and more attention. I think you're going to hear about it more and more, especially as Twitter continues to fumble. Especially as Twitter begins to fumble. They've been burning bridges with advertisers. That's a loss of revenue. They've been burning bridges with alphas. That's a loss of attention. They've been burning bridges. It is what it is. Now the question is what are you going to do? Well, I've made my decisions. I'm comfortable with my decisions. I'll be everywhere as long as I can be, but I'm going to start, thinking through the prospect of figuring out Mastodon in every way, shape, and form, getting to know it better, proselytizing, if you will. And again, it's open source, right? There's nobody... It's a project. It's like getting excited about WordPress, right? And some people get really excited about WordPress. I never really got excited about WordPress. It was a CMS. But this, in fact, you can connect the Fediverse to your WordPress, believe it or not. You can turn your WordPress blog, I believe, into an instance. So anyway, to me, that's the biggest tech news of the week. Twitter crashing and burning. And social media in general, as well as Mastodon. And if you hadn't heard about Mastodon before, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm learning as I go. A couple of other questions here. These are quick questions to answer. Camera I'm using currently is the Sony ZV-1. If you would like to get a Sony ZV-1, here's my affiliate link. It's on Amazon. It works very well. I've been using it for a year and a half now. Of course, I use multiple cameras. I've also got my this is the Pixel 7 camera that's pointed directly at my 3D printer, and I also have a Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 Ultra pointed another angle at the printer and MakerDeck live on Twitch there. So I have several cameras here. I don't flip between them during these broadcasts necessarily, but yeah, I've been thinking about having more of these types of conversations and figuring out, the day's tech news and the news that really matters and the news that has weight. and trying to figure it out, because I do not know everything. I absolutely do not know everything, but I'm fascinated when it comes to the prospect of learning. Gaming chair versus office chairs, is there a difference in comfortability? Couldn't tell you. Not a chair expert. My ass has been sitting in this chair for 20 years. This chair is almost as old as Locker Gnome is, or was. It's almost a quarter of a century old. It's ready. I'm ready for an upgrade. I just haven't done it. This will fall apart one day, and I'll have no choice. And so I've been trying to line up getting an alternative chair in here sooner or later. So anyway, that's what's been on my mind in terms of tech this week. Twitter, Mastodon, social media. I'd like to continue these deeper dive topics with everybody, because I just feel like everyone could stand to benefit from having these conversations that have weight, not just talking about things that are here and gone. So thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for being here. Maybe I'll see you on Mastodon. Maybe I won't. Maybe I can answer more questions. Happy to, if only because I feel like I need to, especially right now. I'm always looking for something that's interesting. The next thing that is going to be happening is the newsletter. I am going to be moving it from review moving it back from review to Substack. So it'll be on Substack again. I don't know what's going to happen with the review link. I'll probably shut it down. Kill it. Dead. Gone. No reason to have it exist at that point. And then you can find me on Substack. But I'm going to try to do a weekly newsletter roundup of things that were on my radar. I'm going to try to compile a weekly digest of, little quips that I made on Twitter and that you might have, or Mastodon that you might have missed, or as well as like, here's a link, 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 because it's impossible to see everything and do those kinds of digests for everybody. So I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make an effort to do that. And I'm also going to be doing a live video in the old YouTube channel to talk about Mastodon and Twitter and what have you. So I don't know what's going to happen with this channel. I don't, because honestly, if I can't crack the algorithm, I'm probably going to stick with shorts and one live video a week in this channel, because it's just not. Otherwise, I can't crack the algorithm, and I'm done cracking the algorithm. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. About everything that'll be in the newsletter, not everything, but Mastodon is probably the fire hose. Mastodon and/or Twitter, and then like if I find a news article or a useful piece, I'm basically just going to copy and paste it into a newsletter and say, okay, I found these things. I'm interested as a content creator. These things were interesting. I'm interested as an entrepreneur. These things were interesting. I'm interested as a tech enthusiast or an evangelist, right? These things are interesting. These are the things I'm interested in. This is what happened. This is what I found. Here's why I think it's interesting. And then fun stuff too. Fun stuff. It'll be very, very simple. So thanks again for tuning in. I love you. I appreciate you, but